Welcome to Minutes with the Mayor. I'm Bob Gough. I'm with Quincy Mayor Linda Moore. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad this is only the second one, but I'm glad I made it today so that we could do the minutes with the mayor.
Well, you're going to be on most of them.
Yes.
But every once in a while, you want some of your staffers to come on and just kind of give a more of a ground level update on things, and I appreciate that. But again, we want to start this podcast, and we want to run it on Tuesdays after the council meetings because you have a big council meeting, a lot of people are talking, and to kind of just get a little bit more of it. We always put together, David and Annie, me, whoever. We always write stories that we think give a pretty good account of what happened, but it's always just good to kind of fill in the blanks on some other stuff too sometimes. I think one of the first things to talk about from last night is the whole nuisance abatement issue. Now we're going to talk about potholes later, but again, when you've got limited staff, they got a lot of stuff to do.
Absolutely.
So you have to pick and choose.
That's right.
So how do you pick and choose?
Well, and we've got 14 aldermen who will all tell us the incident in their ward is the most important.
Absolutely.
So, we try to accommodate everybody as best we can, but we actually have two paths that we go down. We have a complaint is called in, and we go and we inspect or we take a look at it and then determine, okay, we've got to give them 7 to 14 days, to react to it and see if they will clean it up themselves. Sometimes we know, based on past experience, that they're not going to clean it up.
Sure.
So in those instances, then, we can send those down the legal path where we take it to court and try to obtain action after the period of time that they didn't comply. So that takes some off of the immediate plates of central services. We can get the court process going while they're doing other properties that they can react to more quickly. Sometimes, too, it's a matter of this job is going to take an hour, this job is going to take 6 hours. This job is going to take 1 man, this job is going to take 5 men or 6 men and all the machinery. So we have to kind of schedule that way as well. So while one property might not be at the top of the list, because we can fit it in and get it done, we go ahead and do it.
And it's not like they're getting a free service here. You send them a big old bill.
Exactly.
As you should.
Exactly. And I can tell you, when I was the treasurer, I would get phone calls when people got the bills and they couldn't believe how high they are. But we bill by the man hour, so if it's a 4 or 5 person job, if they're there 2 hours, you're getting a bill for 10 hours.
Yeah.
If we have equipment that we're using as well, that's time too. So, yeah, I've seen some pretty hefty bills for jobs that I wouldn't have thought were quite that big.
Is this a case like with the landlord issue where you have bad actors and you have a list and you know who they are? Do we have that with this? Well, do we have a group of bad actors here too?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. I assume.
I call them the frequent flyers.
No doubt. It's and again, so just mow your yards, people. It's not that difficult.
Exactly.
So let's talk a little bit about the police department. And again, I want to remind people that the mayor does not select the police chief. The mayor works in tandem with the police chief. The mayor works with the department on budgeting and all kinds of things. But in the end, it is the Police and Fire Commission who sort of has the oversight responsibility. Correct?
Correct. And they have the oversight for hiring, firing, discipline, promotions, all of that.
So in the issues that we had the last few days here with Chief Yates and the staff, that has all been vetted and gone through the Police and Fire Commission?
Correct.
Okay. So I just wanted to make sure that people knew that's why there were people, in the previous administration, we had people who wanted to abolish the commission and wanted the mayor to have all this control and things like that. But it's really situations like this that we have this check and balance, and it seems to work for me.
That's right.
So
I don't think that our public safety should ever be a political issue.
No.
It's about getting the right people in the right seats to do the right thing at the right time. And both police and fire are professional departments. As mayor, I expect them all to act in a professional manner 100% of the time.
Sure.
But they're human.
Sure.
And sometimes mistakes are made. That happens. If we weren't human, we wouldn't make mistakes. So I know they're going through a rough time. The entire department is going through a rough time. And there are a lot of sides being taken, I guess you could say. My feeling is I'm going to continue to support Chief Yates and his staff, from Chief Yates to his command staff to his officers, and I'm going to do whatever I can to support them and encourage them to be the professionals that they are and to work through issues internally.
Yeah.
You know, it's unfortunate that this got out in the public. You know, I know the public wants transparency, and I think there are some things that the public should know. But there are other details, especially around personnel matters, that should not be aired in the media.
No, personnel and labor negotiations and things like that are all that ilk. Speaking of labor negotiations, Juneteenth is now a city holiday, and it's something apparently the unions wanted in the negotiations.
Well, all of the unions have it in their contract.
Sure.
So it was only the non-union employees who didn't have Juneteenth off. So, for instance, in central services, we had supervisors, but there was no one for them to supervise because all of the union labor had the day off. In City Hall, we had about half of our staff.
Sure.
And of course, 13 more of them are going to become union here in the next year, which means there are even fewer impacted, and there would be even fewer people there. So then we have somebody coming in to pay a water bill or to sign up for water service, and the treasurer's office had to say, I'm sorry, the union members have to do that. We can't do that for you. So then customers were frustrated.
Yeah.
So it should have always been either everybody works or nobody works.
Yeah.
You know, simple.
And again, I mean, and any time you have a deal where you have a staff that is made up of union and non-union, many times those non-union people, there are Me Too clauses, or they'll say, hey, since the union got this, you're going to get this too.
Exactly.
And that's just really what this process really is.
Exactly. And if we had held to that all along, it would be a lot simpler.
Absolutely. A couple other quick points. I bring this up a lot, probably to the annoyance of Brittany and Ashley on Club Muddy. I was president of the park board at one time. And we had a consent agenda that we used, and it worked just fine. And if one of my fellow park board members said, hey, I'd like to discuss this outside of that, we're going to discuss that. And I would say, sure, let's discuss that. People seem to have this idea that a consent agenda is a way to put something in a lockbox and so people can't find out about it. Did I just give a correct description of a consent agenda?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
So I just want to make sure that's
Yes.
clear.
No, that is correct.
If an alderman has an issue, they can say, hey, take out item B, let's flesh this out.
Correct. The other thing, you know, the issue of transparency was brought up. What we do now in our agendas today versus a consent agenda, there's really no difference in the transparency. The difference is that instead of taking a voice vote or a roll call vote on every single item, we're going to lump those routine items together, and we've decided that we're actually going to read the consent agenda and every item on it, and then we will do a roll call vote. So, for instance, last night we had, I think, 7 or 8 permits, petitions. We had a couple of appointments. We had a couple of reports. All of those could be on the consent agenda, and it's one vote versus every time. When we have a routine resolution, something that we know every year we're going to renew, and maybe it's $8,000 to $10,000, and there's never in 5 years been anybody object to it, that's something that could go on the consent agenda. We talked about even first and second readings of ordinances could go on the consent agenda, but we've decided not to do that. Because a lot of times we want to discuss them at the first and second reading so that we get the amendments done before the third reading. We're probably also going to start slow. So instead of having everything that could be on the consent agenda, we might start with just petitions. And then after a few weeks and everybody getting used to that, then maybe we will add some reports or some routine resolutions, and we'll develop that consent agenda along the way, just to give everybody a little more comfort with it. The other thing that we've been asked to do is to actually read every item on the consent agenda, because we know we have some members that are watching on TV and maybe they don't see very well or they have a small screen. So we're going to read all of those items on the consent agenda as well. And I think that will help too.
Anytime you're trying to do some kind of policy change, there's always going to be some give and take and some compromise, and that sounds like that's exactly what this is.
Exactly.
So, okay.
Well, and then the other thing I will mention, we are working on the website and revising the website. It will probably be September before we go live with it because there's just a lot to do, and again, short of personnel. When that happens, somebody will be able to follow the agenda on the website. They can click on any item and they will see everything that the alderman sees.
Great.
So that way we have greater transparency. Unfortunately, we just can't get things done fast enough. If somebody could invent a 164-hour day, then maybe we could get it done in a couple of weeks.
No, because then I'd just work more, and then my wife would yell at me more. So we don't want that. So, we mentioned earlier about nuisance abatement and the staff it takes, and if those guys weren't having to cut grass, they could fill more potholes, right?
Absolutely.
And how's the pothole filling coming along?
I saw the crew out this morning. They were working between 8th and 4th, and between, I think, probably Chestnut and Locust, somewhere in that area. But I saw them. They were doing a good job. Of course, the rain last night filled a lot of potholes.
Yeah, you think?
So when they're full of water, we can't fill them. We'll have to go back and get them after they dry. But there were a lot of them we could.
Stick a shop vac in that thing. Come on. Get 100 days. Let's go.
They have implemented the grid system, and it is working.
Good.
I'm getting feedback from a lot of people that, oh my gosh, they filled the potholes that they haven't filled in 3 years.
That's great.
So we're getting there.
All right. Mayor Moore, thank you very much.
Thank you.